All right. Happy Sunday, Vikings Vent Line. That's right. The most interactive show in Minnesota Vikings land, powered by our friends. That's right. Powered by our friends at Surly Brewing Company. Some of the best beers there are. Obviously, the Surly IPA, the Surly Furious, one of the best IPAs out there. I like me an extra Citra. Shout out to our friends at Surly Brewing who have now jumped on board of Vikings Vent Line as well as Purple Daily, where we bring you content 7 days a week on your podcast and on our YouTube channel as well, plus bonus episodes, some After Dark. Stay tuned later tonight on Sunday evening, and we will also have a After Dark episode recapping what happened against the Vikings and Broncos in the first preseason game. Phil Mackey will join Judd Zulgad and myself to break that down. My guy Jake is going to join me here for Vikings Vent Line here in just a little bit, but obviously it's a little bit of show logistics. If this is the first time you have discovered Vikings Vent Line, thank you for discovering us. Hit that subscribe button. Again, we bring you at least 7 days a week of content. Well, there's 7 days a week, but at least 7 videos a week right here on this YouTube channel. And if you want more of your podcast feed, hit that like button, give us 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, scorenorth.com, wherever you find your podcast, and we'll gladly keep pumping out Minnesota Vikings content. We're a month away from the NFL season. I'm sure my guy Jake will have plenty to talk about here in just a little bit. And if you'd also like to get in on a future episode of Vikings Vent Line, shoot me an email, vikingsventline@gmail.com. We do have a couple more off-season episodes with myself on these Sundays that we'd love to get to, so shoot me an email, vikingsventline@gmail.com, and I'll put you in the queue. And then once the regular season starts, for those who have discovered Purple Daily in just the last 6 to 8 months, we do a live Vikings Vent Line show immediately after the game ends. So the moment that game ends, Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad, and myself, we hop into this room, we bring you guys on the screen with us, and we go around and we talk about the game, sometimes for good, sometimes for worse, but we will gladly still do that. We're going to do that after every single Vikings game this season. We get a bonus one because obviously it's a 17-game schedule. So if you'd like to get in on a future episode of Vikings Vent Line, please shoot me an email, vikingsventline@gmail.com. All right. Let's get my guy Jake in here. Jake is calling just from the Minnesota-Iowa border, but he is still a Vikings fan. Obviously, you can tell by his, is that Anthony Barr we got rocking on?
So Rogers walks into a bar.
Yep, love it. That's right.
And also, real quick, too.
Oh, yeah. Look at this guy. Look at this pro. Surly IPA. And this is the first, he told me off mic, this is the first time he's trying it. What do you think of it, Jake? What do you think of the Surly Furious? Give us a review here.
Like I say, as a guy that's not really a big IPA guy per se, this is actually one of my favorites. I mean, I like just the flavors of it. It does have that like IPA pop to it, but it's not like soap.
Yep. So. Yeah, some of those IPAs, I feel you. Some of those IPAs can taste a little soapy. Not Surly Furious. They're one of the best around. I like the Extra Citra. I like the Supra. They have some damn good beers. And then Surly Furious IPA, the one that started it all, now sponsoring Purple Daily Programming, and Jake just rocking the product placement here for us on this Sunday of Vikings Vent Line. Jake, thanks for coming on, man. I'm excited to talk some Purple with you. I know you said you had a lot of notes to get to as well. We obviously I bring up a few questions here, so we'll start with this one because we've been talking about the last few days. Keep in mind, I do pre-record this show on a Friday, so if something has happened since this is aired, we'll obviously get to it and we'll talk to it on another episode of Purple Daily.
Yep.
But should the Minnesota Vikings sign an offensive lineman? I mean, for my God, Christian Darrisaw they're claiming he's going to be ready week 1. I don't know if I believe that. Wyatt Davis seems to be behind the depth chart just in general. Rashad Hill even went down on Friday's practice. There's Russell Okung is out there. I mean, Mitchell Schwartz is out there. There's still some offensive linemen out there. I don't know how you feel about this line going into the week 1 of the NFL season here in about 3-4 weeks, Jake, but should the Vikings go out and at least address to sign or trade at least for one more offensive lineman?
For me, yes. Because of what you just said there, with all the injuries that we've been having recently. And have you heard the latest on Rashad Hill? I haven't heard a lot about that. I just kind of heard from you guys that
he got banged up, and I don't know if he'll play in the preseason game, but I know he got banged up.
Alrighty, so at this point, we almost have to because it's like we really just don't have a lot of offensive linemen, and I really don't want to pull up like who was it, 2016, like when we pulled Jake Long off the street and literally plucked him in that week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I if we can avoid that at all costs, that would be nice. But yeah, basically, long story short, yeah. I feel like at the very least we should just get a couple of these guys in or kind of look at the waiver wires and just kind of see who is available. Because, again, you know how our offensive line's been these last few years. It's basically been like one of those mall revolving doors or
Yeah.
those like old fashioned saloon doors where it's just like, come on in, D line, And of course, with Kirk Cousins, who has the awareness of a sloth in January, I mean, we need all the help we can get there. So, yeah, at the very least, just bring in some bodies to kind of help either fill the gap until we can get Darisaw back or like Wyatt Davis or like actually get the pieces going. Or even just, kind of like with what our defense has, a lot of 1-year starters, just get some guys there just to kind of help shore up the line until we get those guys completely healthy and can get them up to speed.
Yeah, I would think it'd be very beneficial if they can go out and sign someone and maybe as they watch more of these preseason games and preseason practices that they're going to realize that. I think Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer are forward thinking enough to know that they can't just roll the dice and say let's have a shaky, if not even worse, offensive line than they had in 2020. You bring up a good point that when rosters get cut down here in a couple weeks to 53, will someone get cut that was a surprise? Will they end up trading a draft pick to acquire someone? Time will tell. But I just think in general, whether you're a Kirk Cousins fan or not, I mean, Kirk deserves better than what the heck they're giving him to start the season. So I'm with you, man. I think they got to go out and get something on the offensive line, just get beefier there and protect Kirk.
Yeah, because again, especially with out of all the stuff I've been hearing, and I've even reported on my social medias and channel and stuff like that too. This is a make or break year because of all the talent we have on offense, and not to mention our defense too. I mean, there's no reason this shouldn't be a very, very good year for us. Even with Rodgers being in the division, even with, Justin Fields popping up out of nowhere, there's no reason we shouldn't be competitive in the NFC North this year.
I agree. I think it's going to be mostly a slugfest, and towards the end, I'll ask you your win total here. But I don't see a situation in the North, at least, even with Rodgers back too, and Justin Fields, who's apparently turning some heads in Bears training camp. I only see like one double-digit win team, and I don't even know if I see it. It might just be 9 wins this division. Everyone else just beats up on each other.
Yeah, I could see that too because the NFC North was nicknamed the Black and Blue Division for a reason.
Right. Exactly. So we'll keep it rolling here on Vikings Vent Line, and we have Mr. Mankato picks that we do every year, and also there's still other players like Herb Smith has shown up before, and I'm just kind of curious too, Jake, who is someone that you really wanted to take the next step this preseason, or is it a rookie? Is it a second year or third year player? Who is one player that you've been keying in on this preseason that you want to see more of and make a big impression before the regular season starts?
Well, for me, there's a couple of people. For me, the one that I really want to see actually succeed is Oli Udoh, just because he's probably going to be one of our starters on the offensive line. And I know that he's a relatively young lineman. If I remember right, he's our starting right guard, correct?
Yes.
So, and we all know how, again, our interior line has been Q-Pad Elf line. But it's just so for me, I want to see how well is he progressing? How is his, pass blocking? Because our run blocking isn't that bad. And thankfully with guys like Nwangu, who's, in my opinion, probably been the star of preseason so far for me. From Iowa State, by the way. Not too far away from me, a few hours away.
Are you a Hawkeye? Are you a Cyclones fan, excuse me?
Well, I'm weird enough. I actually root for most of all the Iowa teams just because, well, around here we really don't get a lot of national publicity.
Sure.
Being Midwest and all that stuff. But yeah, and even Smith Marset too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, I'd have to say the biggest impression that I need to see is Oli Udoh, just for that reason because all of our linemen are going down, as well as for me the most impressive guy so far would be Nwangu. And all that stuff. So, and of course, special mention to whoever wins the kicking game because, well, I don't need to go into that much further. Damn you, Walsh. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
It sounds like Greg Joseph has it locked down, and I know they have the Riley Patterson kid who's coming off an injury. Joseph's looked decent in training camp. Judge said, I believe, unofficially, he's made 30 out of 36 kicks. That's about 85%. He's hit all of his ones from 50, which is good. Just, you know what? Yeah, one job, kicker. You just got one job, as we know, and that sometimes that one job and that one little chip shot can still cause us agony, and we're still talking about it 5 years later. So,
But you want to know
I hear
what?
you.
One last thing, real quick, before we move on with that is think about how difficult that actually is, though. Like you're walking up there for like a 50-yard field goal to win the Super Bowl with thousands of people watching you, you know, and all it takes is one small mess up, and you're literally like pitchforked out of town. So
yeah,
it's one of those positions that's a very thankless job. So
it's a volatile position, man. There's a lot of pressure. There's no, it's a mental position. It totally is. And when you have someone like Mike Zimmer who just despises kickers as it is, it can make it even more difficult. Going back to your preseason guys too, I think Oli Udo, yeah, that was Phil's guy too. We said earlier this week to give him a chance, and maybe there is something there. You know, he's been here a couple years now, and he's known the system, and maybe there is something. There's a diamond in the rough there. I need to see it. I can't just give him a benefit of the doubt and just say, yeah, he'll be fine in the offensive line. I mean, he's barely played. He's only, I think he played a week 17 snap, 2 years ago when the Vikings already clinched a playoff spot. But outside of that, he really hasn't touched the field too much. With Nwangu, that was my Mr. Mankato pick as well. The dude looks like he's going to be awesome on kick returns. In general, the Vikings like to use 3 running backs. They've used Dalvin Cook. They've used Alexander Madison. Kenny Nwangu has also looked like he's going to replace Mike Boone. So I can see situations where they'll still get all 3 of those running backs run. And then finally, Amir Smith-Marset. He's in competition for that 3rd wide receiver job with KJ Osborne, and in general might be a punt guy too. So I think it's kind of funny that Christian Darrisaw and Wyatt Davis were the 2 guys everyone was talking about to be penciled in day 1 starters. And so far through the first, 2 weeks of training camp, it's actually been Nwangu and Amir Smith-Marset are the 2 dudes who have been showing up the most.
Yeah, but I mean, I just didn't realize that the Darrisaw injury was as bad as it is. And again, like you know how Mike Zimmer is when it comes to that. He definitely doesn't beat around the bush. If he's upset, he'll let you know.
Yeah, seriously. No doubt. You did earlier, Jake, bring up the defense, and I have trepidations about this. I think it's obviously improved. I think it's improved. It's for sure improved. Yeah. They were 30th last year. They were one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They had injuries. They had rookies. They had inexperience, ineffectiveness, COVID situation. Everything was working against them. I give them the benefit of the doubt there. They went out to get Patrick Peterson. They get Dalvin Tomlinson. Michael Pierce looks like he's a beast. Xavier Woods should be a nice safety along Harrison Smith. That's all gravy. I think they have made improvements, but I think it's a little far-fetched to just assume that they go back to being a top 10 unit like they typically under Mike Zimmer. I think Zimmer's a hell of a defensive coach, and he can milk out a lot of stuff. I just don't know if they can be top 10 again. I don't know what you think. Do you think this Vikings defense can return to what it should be and also be another top 10 unit again like it usually is under Mike Zimmer?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why he can't. I mean, granted, at the end of the day, I'm also not going to be one of those guys who'll be like, we're going to have the number 1 defense in the league. No. I mean, case in point, Barr will be back. Yep. Kendricks is finally, back. And then we actually have some veteran corners who, I mean, granted, Patrick Peterson isn't the same Pat P he was 5-6 years ago, but even if he's still 75%, that's better than what we had last year, Absolutely. And then also, guys like Rashad Breeland, who, he sounds like he's kind of struggled a little bit there, but then you bring back guys like Mack, Sheldon Richardson, you get Danielle Hunter back. Harrison Smith is still a dog. Xavier Woods is a, actual veteran in the league too. I mean, like I say, just because it's different doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be worse or,
Right.
At the very least, we have that veteran presence that can help develop the youth. Because the problem that I've noticed with last year is we basically, again, remember, no training camp, no preseason, none of that. We literally started pretty much half of our defense was rookies.
Yeah.
Like literally, basically, here you go. Try to stop Devontae Adams. Try to stop Allen Robinson. Try to stop, Larry Fitzgerald. Guys like that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you just basically threw them all to the wolves with no help or no preseason or training. Because at least with this year, they, even though there was trial by fire in the whole Jeff Gladney situation, which I'm not going to get into there, but it's like Cam Dantzler has shown that he can, in a couple of years here, he can be that guy eventually for us. And you bring back guys who are familiar with the system too, So, I mean, at the very least, it will improve. Now, will it be top 10? Again, as a Vikings fan, I'm always erring on the side of caution. I'm always one of those, I'll, believe it when I see it.
Yep.
But there's no reason this defense can't be a top 10 defense. Now, will they? That's a different question.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely made significant improvements. Danielle Hunter being back is obviously humongous, too. He's probably the most important player on the defensive line, and just getting after the quarterback will be big for them. I think Cam Dantzler has a hell of a future. And there's, other players, too, that have stepped up. And, yeah, I think it's improved. I think it's going to be better. I just have trepidations that it can be it can be something that's top 10 again.
Now, quick question for you. Who's the other starter? Is it Stephen Weatherly that they're penciling in as the other defensive end for this preseason game? Okay. I'll be
Weatherly, Wanham, I think, are the two main guys.
Alrighty. Yeah, because, Wanham has one of my favorite plays of last year. But anyway, remember that at the end of the game?
That's right, against Rodgers. He did.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely did. I think this defense can cook, man. I think it's gonna be better. I have trepidations that it just returns it to being the shutdown unit it was with Zimmer, but it's definitely improved, and they need it. Judge says they need it to be top 10, and I agree in that assessment. They do need it to be top 10 if they're probably going to be legitimate.
Yeah, especially with the whole offensive line issues. We don't know how long it's going to be before we have guys like Darisaw or Davis, or who even knows who we're going to have, I mean, so if we can at least have one side of the ball, be no worries, if we can have that defense being at that level, they can carry us to a couple of victories if need be, so it's just, a matter of, can we do it?
Yep. I agree. I ask every listener that comes on this show just for a win total. I know I teased that up earlier, so I'm curious with what you think, Jake, with this defense. Obviously, having a lot of patchwork and making improvements. I know the offensive line is this biggest question mark here. We probably even knocked off a win or two in the last week and a half, just considering how the line is looking and shaking out. But how many wins do you have for the Vikings this year in 2021?
Well, going into preseason, I predict 10-7.
Okay.
If I were a betting man like I say, as of now, 10-7, because, again, with those issues there with the offensive line and all that stuff being where it's at, and the defense, I still got to see how all the pieces work together there. I have a feeling our offense will be fine. If worst comes to worst, we could always rely on maybe a little bit more gadgetry, with like Nwangu, and I've seen Dalvin Cook do a little bit of like Wildcat and stuff like that too. So at the very least, try to get a little bit of pressure off Cousins, and or Browning or whoever the quarterback is, because I don't think we need to go back over that. But anyway, so basically we have weapons there that we can use for various points and various times in the season if we need to. So I'm not too worried about that. It's just like I say, with the offensive line, can Kirk Cousins have enough time to, at the very least, get it to like a Dalvin Cook, get it to one of our receivers, whether it be, Thielen or Jefferson or whoever, it's like, will we be able to at least give him a couple of seconds to make that decision? And then can our defense go up against guys like, Devontae Adams and Allen Robinsons and, I know that, I'm trying to think of some other big receivers. I know we're probably playing a few more big receivers because we have the 5th hardest schedule too, which never does us any favors either. But with that being said, though, this team actually gives me a little bit of hope, if I dare say that any Vikings team can give me hope. But it's just like, again, with all the additions we have, with all the overall, just basically the overall additions, just actually having the preseason and the training camp to get everyone gelling together.
Yep.
Which will be huge because, again, the camaraderie and have everybody on the same page, So, but yeah, if I had to bet, I'd say 10-7 at this point.
I think 10-7 is probably the safe assumption. I had him at 11-6 going into training camp. I figured Darisaw and Wyatt Davis would be ready to roll, and now with that line kind of shaken out the way it is, I think 10 wins is probably now the ceiling. I thought 11 or 12 could be it if Darisaw and Davis were going to be the guys and be who we thought they were going to be. Now I have to knock down a win or two, but I think 10 wins and flirting with the NFC North is absolutely a possibility. There's really no reason why the Vikings should not flirt with the division lead. I noticed you got a Randy Moss jersey above you over your one shoulder.
Yep.
What's the wild one?
Oh, the Wild is actually a custom made that I had from
Okay.
shopgoodwill.com.
Nice, man.
Not Shop Goodwill, I mean Cool Hockey.
Okay.
They're based out of Toronto, and
Nice, man.
I'm actually pretty well. I'm a pseudo big hockey fan. Like I kind of really ramped up NHL fandom probably about 4 or 5 seasons ago.
Nice.
And all that stuff. So, but yeah, I even have the reverse retro from the Wild last season, which that'll be another interesting team to watch this year with Parise and Sudergon. But again, this is a Viking stream, not a Wild stream. But yeah, no, it's just like and also over here too.
You got more.
Like one of my big Vikings jersey right there.
Yep.
That was actually the one I went to when Jared Allen came so close to breaking the sack record in 2011.
Right. Yes, when he was just purposely trying to get after the quarterback and avoiding trying to tackle a running back or anything. He wanted that sack record so bad. It was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I know. That was crazy. And one last thing, too, is I actually have this pennant right here.
Yeah.
That was I actually went to the last game at the Metrodome.
Nice.
Against the Lions in 2013. In fact, this year, I'll be going to my first ever game at US Bank Stadium, ironically enough, against the Lions.
Absolutely.
Which hopefully should be a win. But like I say, though, it'll be interesting to see just how they do and like the NFC North in general does this year. Because there's a lot of question marks still throughout the whole division. So.
I agree. Yeah, US Bank's going to be a fun time, man. I'm excited for you. It gets loud. It's a raucous environment. I know, God willing, it sounds like fans are going to be back here, so it looks like it'll be back to full strength.
I hope so.
And that's one of the best home field advantages in the NFL, so you're going to have a blast. I can't wait for you to head out there. Jake, before we wrap, is there any person or anyone you want to shout out here in the last 60 seconds before we wrap up on Vikings Vent Line?
Well, basically just, shout out to all my family and friends out there, like all my, especially the Vikings fans among us, Like I say, this is actually really kind of an exciting thing for me because I actually just recently went back to college for sports marketing and media. So.
Nice, dude.
And, like I say, had some stuff happen with my last college and all that stuff too. But now that I'm kind of back in and stuff like that, it's always just kind of cool, going into something like this again because, obviously I love the Minnesota Vikings, even though they find new ways to hurt us.
That's right.
But so, yeah.
Nice. What are you looking to do in sports? Is there an end goal? Is it, do you want to do on air or podcasting? Do you want to do behind the scenes? Do you want to do sales? What are you looking to do in sports?
Probably, I mean, granted, like it kind of changes, but for now, I mean, the podcast thing is really kind of cool. It's just, I mean, like I say, there's a lot of, Vikings podcasters and stuff like that too, which in my opinion is nice because it just seems like, especially with the lack of media really giving the Vikings attention, unless it's either dumpster fire or, what happened 2 weeks ago. But yeah, so it's kind of nice to actually be able to because I'm not just a Vikings fan, but I love watching the NFL and all that stuff too. Just because, it's a very fun game to watch, and it's a very interesting game to kind of see how everything changes. And plus, it's a lot less stressful when I'm not watching the Vikings and having to pound like a 10-pack of these during the game.
Yeah, Surly Furious can definitely help you out there. Yeah, man. And the NFL's king, dude. The NFL's king. It's the best day. Sundays is the best day of the week when it's football season, so I feel you on that. I hear you. Jake, thank you so much for coming on Vikings Vent Line, man. Appreciate you supporting Purple Daily. If anyone wants to come on a future episode of Vikings Vent Line, shoot me an email. It's been scrolling across the bottom of the screen for our video audience, vikingsventline@gmail.com. I will gladly put you in queue. We'll be back later on Sunday evening for a After Dark edition, and then also we'll be back with Mackie and Judd Full Strength this next week, as well as preseason and training camp continues on. In the meantime, thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow.